All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a regular Board of Selectmen meeting on April 19th at 5:30 p.m. in the Memorial Town Hall meeting room. Selectwoman Jude Reed is present. Selectman Jim Lamppost is present, as well as Martha Shoemaker, your first Selectwoman. We have a few guests in the audience, as well as Suzanne McAuliffe, who's our clerk. And we have some people online as well, which we will get to. I'm going to ask that we make a couple of changes to the agenda. One, the first thing is under new business number B, letter B, registrars request for additional pay. They've asked to cancel that and be moved to a future agenda after they've had some time to analyze the early voting that took place in the last few weeks. Also, our special presentation today will be online. Mr. Patoma will be talking to us from home today for his presentation, but I have materials for all of you on that. And then the other thing is I do need to ask for an addition under new business. We've been asked to sign on for the CCOG. This is a yearly grant, and it's for CCOG, Southern Connecticut COG. It's an MOA that we sign to join all the other 44 towns for, and I'll give you more information on it. So could I have a motion to add under fire department for the CCOG MOA?
I'll make a motion to add the CCOG MOA to our new business agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor with that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. Motion passes to agenda amendment. Okay. So then for some information items, I would like to say that as far, Jude, do you have any information correspondence?
No, they're only the things I saw that were sent to all of us. So I'm sure you have those.
I don't know if I do. So
Yeah, but
if you have anything after.
I don't have anything new.
Okay. Jim, do you have anything?
I have nothing new.
Okay, so the only one thing that I do have is that many people have been asking, well, what we're going to do for Liam Corrigan.
Mhm.
We have been in touch with Liam through a mutual friend. And right now he is not planning on being back in Old Lyme until November. There have been some wonderful ideas passed around. Anything from a parade, because we always love a parade in Old Lyme. A parade, we've talked about having some signage, other towns, shoreline towns, and also towns in Connecticut are putting up signs that say, "Welcome to Old Lyme, home of an Olympic medalist,
nice.
Liam Corrigan." And these are permanent signs, and we can talk about possibly doing something like that before he comes home. But these are things that I'll plant the seeds today. And Jim, Jude, you can start to think about what you'd like to do, what we might do, and then we can move forward with that. The other items that I've been asked to hand out to you are from our HR department. These are some new onboarding. This is informational purposes. You can go through it if you'd like to have Jill to come. But Jill has put together a really nice onboarding package. And the reasons why, so that we are dotting every I, crossing every T, and everyone who comes on to work for the town of Old Lyme will go through the process.
Good.
So please feel
I'll look
free
at
to
that.
read that at your leisure. And now we bring ourselves to public comment.
I did have one thing that
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought was sent
Sorry.
to everyone regarding the Lafayette breakfast
Mhm.
at the
Yes.
Historical Society. I believe it's on Tuesday, the 22nd,
Thursday, the
or
22nd.
Thursday, the
In
22nd.
the morning.
And I
Eight-
think we all got that,
Yep,
right?
8 to 9. And
Okay.
the public, of course, is welcome as well.
Mhm.
Okay,
Definitely.
good. All right, so it's time for public comment. We're going to start with public comment from those present here in the room. Mary, would you like to come first?
Thank you. Mary Daly, Portland Avenue, Old Lyme. In light of Rich Prendergast's email from August 9th, 2024, and Chairman Tsunami's comments on August 13th, I am submitting this package to be recorded by the town. to substantiate every single comment I made to the Board of Selectmen on August 5th, 2024. All of this just clearly demonstrates further that we have a severe communication problem regarding one of the most expensive and complex projects in the town of Old Lyme, and that the Board of Selectmen needs to step in. Thank you. And can I
Great.
give you this package?
Yes, Mary, thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank
We'll
you.
Put it in. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Dennis, would you like to come forward, please?
Dennis Maluzzo, 7 Portland Avenue. I just want to appeal to the select people, the town of Old Lyme, to reel in the chair and the former chair of the WPCA in the comments that they make to 2 members of the WPCA, not just residents. It was disgraceful that they made an attack on Mary. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. Doesn't bother me. But I can't see why they attack somebody who gives them information that they don't want to hear. And there's a reason why they don't want to hear. And it's usually because it's incorrect that they have. Another bone of contention was, and you have to listen to the second meeting of the WPCA, where we had an invited guest, Dave Potts, the scientist and inventor of geometrics in Saybrook. He designs most of the on-site septic systems, on-site or advanced, on the shoreline. We had requested his presence in July from the June meeting. That was canceled. I sent a request that we add a guest. It was acknowledged. He could speak for 20 minutes, have questions and answers. A motion was made by the former chair, Prendergast, to put Diane, the president of Old Lyme Shores, in place of him, in front of him. It's not the way you do things. Her speech could have been after his. And the way that the chair of the WPCA dismissed most of what he said, I felt sorry for the man because I invited him. And I have to apologize for somebody who doesn't have the common sense to conduct a proper business. And that's what this is. It's a business meeting. It's not a Steve Tsunami, I'm telling you what to do. But you can also see, as I said, at the 15th of August, the Lemmings Parade. No one says anything. No one has any questions. And I even took a beating because I asked the members of the WPCA that we're going to have a speaker. And the only person that raised one question was the treasurer. All the others was Prendergast and Sanam. This is insulting. These are your employees. Even though they're not paid, they're still your employees. Look at the face that they put in on Old Lyme. And we have a lot of issues in Old Lyme. And they're just making it worse. Because they want to get something out by September 15th and be damned everybody else. Disgraceful. I appeal that the way that Mary was dealt with should have been done at a meeting, a meeting of the WPCA. That whole rendition was to bash us. Maybe that's the way they work. He's no team leader like he says he on his LinkedIn page. He's far from it. He's a liability. He might know how to dig a hole and put a piece of pipe in, but that's about it. So I don't know what you guys are going to do. If you can do a reprimand, fine. I don't know. I would rather see him leave the position and give it to somebody who's more deserving. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone else in the audience who has anything to say? Paula?
Right. Paula Malillo, 15 and 21 Portland Avenue, Old Line. And first of all, I'd like to say I parked in the handicap spot and the door was locked. I couldn't get in there. So I don't know. It seemed to be open last week.
I'm sorry about that because it's usually left open until we leave, the last person leaves the
Okay.
building. So
Yeah.
I'll check on that.
Okay, thank you. I virtually attended the WPCA meeting last week.
The special or both? We had a special meeting.
For the special meeting, I had a hard time listening
The
for
first hour, yeah.
Yeah.
some
The
reason.
first hour was off.
Yeah, so, but it was fine for the second time, the WPCA meeting, when Dave Potts was
Mhm.
presenting.
Yep.
And I was encouraged by, his presentation and the alternatives that are available. I'm quite interested in that, alternatives to sewers. And I think he had some good examples for us. I hope that you would consider that. Then the WPCA meeting started and no discussion. They went right into their agenda for the evening. I didn't hear, maybe it happened and I didn't hear it, but I thought they didn't have any comments or discussion of the alternatives. Am I right or wrong? I
don't know. I did not see the agenda.
Yeah, I don't know. With hearing it on the phone, it's not always clear.
I'd have to look.
I think I heard that from others as well. There were only one or two questions.
Right. So I was disappointed in that. And then they went on to a long discussion of budget items and checks that had to be paid, bills that had to be paid. And apparently some bill has to be paid before the contract is signed with one of the IMA. And I'm not too familiar with it, but it seemed as though they were in a rush to have the corrections made and presented to the selectmen or selectwoman. And they were in a hurry to do that and have you sign it. And I'm here to say, please don't sign it. Please wait. Please consider alternatives. Please look at what's going on with the WPCA. I agree with Mary and Dennis. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Paula. Is there anyone else in the audience? Okay, hearing that there's no one else in the audience, is there anyone online? We have one resident online. Is anyone wish to speak for public comment? Going once, going twice, 3 times. So that will close public comment section of the meeting. Okay, we move on to the approval of minutes. We have 2 that we're going to ask, and I'm going to suggest that we set aside our special meeting minutes because I know that Jim and Jude have not had time to read them. However, I have copies for you so that you'll
Great.
be able to
We'll have
have
it for the
hard
next
copies. And you can review, and we'll do this at our next meeting. Hold on one second. Did I not copy this? I did. Hold on. It was police
You
reading.
need help?
No, my little dinosaur arms will work. These are for to take
Great.
home. Here's
Thank
your
you.
homework for tonight.
Thank
Thank you. Okay,
Awesome.
so we
Thank you.
do have the minutes though of the August 5th meeting that we would like to,
I did
Um,
not find any corrections.
we have, we did receive an email from Nancy Dunn who wanted me to change point to bullet number 2 under information items regarding the fact that, should be a 48-hour turnaround for a record of vote. And I will post that in this.
Not
meeting.
24.
Not
Okay.
24.
Great.
So I will post the corrected, in those minutes. Anything else, Jim?
Nope.
Okay, hearing no other changes. Can I get a motion on the floor to accept the minutes from August 5th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 5th.
I will second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of the August 5th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen with the changes regarding record of vote, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any against? No. Good.
No.
Great. I don't know why we have to go through all that, but we do. All right. Good with that. Moving on. We are up next. We have our special presentation by Mr. Fatoma. Are you unmuted?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much for meeting us. I'm going to hand out what you sent me for Jim and Jude so that they'll have it. But I will also add that to our minutes for the public. But
Great.
these are
Thank
some
you.
basic. Okay,
I thank you. I thank the board for the opportunity to appear before you and talk a little bit about what the Open Space Commission is doing. What I provided is just a quick one-page sheet of what I'm going to discuss today with some backup material that provides a little bit of additional information and illustrations for some of the items. I'm happy to report today that we now have 2 stewards that are actively working on trail maintenance to make sure all our properties are safe for visitors. The commission views that as its highest priority. We had a transition period where we had a couple of hiccups. We have 2 longtime stewards that were primarily involved in working on the McCulloch property who both decided to step aside for various personal reasons. And then last summer we had an injury where a steward was hurt and was unable to work for a couple of months. And that prompted us to look into hiring a second steward, which we've done. And that person provides us with backup in the event that we need it. It helps us with additional properties like McCulloch, which our 2 new stewards have to handle now, of course, Neck Creek, Ferry Landing. It also helps when we have extra work. The work can be quite variable on the trails. If we have a storm, for example, branches and trees can come down. There's a lot more work than if it's a calm, basically non-eventful weather period. And then last, there's a number of projects that can really use 2 people, for example. We're putting in a bridge over a stream. They might need to carry a 10-foot long plank well into the woods. So 2 people really can make a difference for that. In the past, our stewards have been contractors, and in discussions last year with finance and with Tim Griswold, we decided to transition them to part-time at-will town employees. Essentially, that means they now have a professional status, I think, which reflects their responsibility, but they are not covered by various rules that relate to hours worked, working on weekends, holidays, and so forth. The benefit to them is that they're now covering the town insurance policy. So rather than have them individually take out policies with companies on their own and having to review policies from 4 different companies, now we have some uniformity, which again, I think is a real benefit. I've attached a page that talks a little bit about Peter Norris and Isaac Kazukin are two stewards. Peter is a veteran. He's worked for us at least 6 or 7 years. Very capable, very dedicated. I think he represents the town exceptionally well. Isaac is a new hire. He has a master's program in education in wildlife biology and ecology and a specialty in salt marsh and ornithology. And we hope to eventually have him maybe do some on-site research and forest planning for us. In that regard, we also have named Andrea Fenton as our chief land steward. She oversees and kind of coordinates the activities between those two stewards to make sure all our properties are covered regularly and so forth. Andrew's very energetic, if you know her, very dedicated. She's probably out on the trails more than any other commission member. A second thing that we did to increase our steward capacity is become a member of the Connecticut Land Conservation Council, municipal member. Although the council is geared toward land trusts, they do accept municipal memberships, and they provide really a great amount of technical advice and knowledge to their members. And Andrea already attended a day-long session, which featured basically stewardship coordinators from a lot of different land trusts talking about the issues they face and possible solutions to deal with various problems. With Andrea as our steward, Ann Redfield as our vice chair, and Joan Meek as our new secretary, I really appreciate the members of the commission stepping up and taking on greater roles. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a lot of volunteers that also contribute to property maintenance. We have especially sought and enjoyed a good working relationship with the high school faculty, and in particular the environmental club. We are hoping to with the land trust to kind of bring along the next generation of land stewards, because our conserved land is really our legacy that we're going to be leaving to our youth. And environmental club has helped us build bridges, remove invasives. They spent a lot of work clearing out a beaver dam viewing area on Ames. And right at the moment, we have a prospective Eagle Scout who is basically drawing up plans to construct a bridge across a flooded area in Bartholomew as part of his Eagle Scout project. When he gets that done, he and a commission member will determine if the project will need to go before inland wetlands to receive any type of approval. And we also have a recent high school graduate, current college student, lives in town, editing remote footage from our cameras on various open space properties into videos that will be posted on the commission website. She just completed 4, focusing on 4 different animals: bobcats, coyotes, deer, and raccoons. Work is going very well on the Ferry Landing Wildlife Refuge. We've mowed Phragmites twice, and in this fall, the Phragmites will receive a second spraying. It's kind of timed to when the reeds start to draw down nutrients into the soil before the dormancy period, and it'll draw the herbicide down into there. We accompany that with herpetologists on site, according to the National Diversity Database analysis we had done by DEEP. So there's not going to be any risk in our work to any endangered or threatened animals. The effort of dealing with the Phragmites has been supplemented by dealing with a lot of the upland invasive plants and trees. And we've been really fortunate to have a great partner with DEEP. DEEP removed a number of ailanthus trees, which are particularly pernicious invasive species, from their own property to keep them from propagating and spreading seedlings onto the town property. We had a botanist that created a floral inventory, and we had drone flights over the overstory and over the pond that will help us with future planning. And most of that was accomplished through a grant. Michael really believes there may be another grant that we could look at if we wish to continue that work. I would just mention that this effort has drawn a fair amount of attention from the conservation community. There's been a lot of work done, for example, on trying to address Phragmites. Rich Snarsky did a great project up in Lord's Cove, but we're a little bit unusual in that we're dealing with both upland and aquatic environments at the same time.
Right.
And as a result, we had representatives from DEEP, from NER, which is the Connecticut National Estuarine Research Reserve, Yukon, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service visit the property to basically look at what we've been doing. Work is also proceeding very well on Horseneck Creek Landing. We have a protective fence up to protect the marsh, and I would thank members of the Harbor Management Committee for volunteering to assist us with that. We also have a Rockfall Foundation, which is going to provide some educational amenities to the site that will go on this fall. I walked the site with Juliana Barrett, who's a PhD at UConn and a coastal expert. And she was really impressed with the upland forest. It's a classic example of a coastal forest with essentially no invasive growth, which is pretty unusual. She's going to be consulting with us and working on us. We also are working with Audubon on materials aimed at birders. Their naturalist, Joe Atwater, provided us with a list of over 100 birds that one might see when visiting the site. And the lower Connecticut River is kind of the nexus for two great migration routes. So the bird species that one sees now will be very different from the species that you see in December, where you have birds going north, coming south, and going east and west. And it's really a spectacular birding site. I've got a sample of a couple of pages I provided to you on the virtual guide. So we'll have little markers along the trail that'll stop and look at different types of vegetation and so forth. And it's interesting that I think one of the things that struck me as I started working on this is how what nature needs is not necessarily what people desire. And a great example is the common greenbrier. I mean, it's a nuisance, it's a pest for us to have to walk through it. But Audubon and Dr. Barrett both stressed its importance, both as a food source and as shelter for birds that are nesting on the site. And it actually was used for various folk medicinal and dietary uses over the years. We've actively promoted use of the property. We have material on our webpage. We've done articles into Events Magazine. And we have a flyer that we include, of course, Neck Creek Landing on that you have a copy of. And I was really kind of interested to see that Horseneck Creek and images of Horseneck Creek are now included in the real estate marketing information for a development that's going up on Buttonball Road. And I know a couple of people that bought houses in that development, and they've walked down to the property and said how much they enjoy it. The commission to recognize the Noyes family bargain sale of a property to the town back in 2002, renamed part of Ames the Noyes family open space. And it also recognizes the family's long history with the property. It was actually given to an ancestor when he was a minister in line back in 1688. It took a little bit of detective work to determine actually the boundary of that property, but we've managed to locate its frontage on Boggy Hill Road, and we have a sign up to note that. We're also, a goal of open space also with the land trust is to put together a town-wide hiking trail. We're researching whether it would be feasible to construct a boardwalk across a wet area that has been closed with the Ames entrance from Whippoorwill Road. That would be able to connect a number of the properties to the east, including McCulloch to Ames and passing right through to a number of other connecting properties. Rob McCarthy has approached the commission. He's believes there's a way to do it that would be environmentally sensitive. And so we're looking into that possibility. And if we were to do anything like that, we would probably try to seek some assistance from the state through the Connecticut Recreational Trails Program. A couple other quick things in terms of our public profile. We kind of have an exciting event scheduled for September 15th. John Pfeiffer, who is the town historian and an archaeologist, and who I believe did his PhD thesis on indigenous occupation, is going to give an on-site lecture at the Caves on Ames on September 15th that the public is invited to. We also have 2 hikers happy hours coming up this fall, one sponsored by the Land Trust and one by Open Space. We had a very busy booth at the Midsummer Festival. I thank Christine McGregor, Andrea Fenton, and Joan Meek for putting together the materials. They had a number of different items for young children, including whistles. Children get lost on the trail running ahead of their parents, or they see coyotes, and the kids drew the parents into the booth. And we had some kind of fun things for parents to do, including a little quiz board where you could select yes or no and have a buzzer go off to see if you were correct or not. And we Open Space endorsed the Lights Out pledge sponsored by Audubon for the fall migration period. And then finally, our members are starting to use Avenza and other apps to come up with more descriptive trail information. I'm particularly concerned or particularly interested in outlining what trails are more difficult, which are easy, which are flat, which could be wet, giving it a more descriptive analysis of all the trails that we can hike. And then when we get that information set, we hope to move it up to Connecticut Trail Finder. So the beautiful areas that we have no line can be shared by members of the greater community. So that's basically what I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Great presentation, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one clarification. With the land stewards, you mentioned that they come under the old line insurance, and I expect you're talking about liability, not health insurance, correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yep, strictly liability insurance. They're using chainsaws and so forth. So just in the event that they get hurt or someone happens to walk under a branch that they're cutting, but they're very careful, and we make sure they follow strict safety rules.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, on average, about how many hours a week do each of the stewards work?
I would say they're working. Again, they're working more now than they'll be working in February, but they're working about 5 hours each a week now.
Great. Thank you. Jim, anything?
Yeah, a few quick questions, Greg. First of all, thank you so much for all the work you do and that everyone on Open Space does, as well as the Land Trust and all of the predecessors on your commissions that have brought us here with these wonderful properties that are such a asset to our community. So thank you. A couple of quick questions. Could you discuss the percentage of land in Old Lyme that's protected currently, both by the state and by our local commissions?
Yes, there's actually a number of parties that hold land in town, Jim. There's the town, obviously, the Land Trust, the state of Connecticut, the Nature Conservancy has one property, and then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has their Peterson Reserve, and we are very close, particularly with the new acquisition by the Land Trust, to the 22% ratio that the state was looking for.
Great. Looking at Nature Conservancy's report from 2017, they discussed the importance of protecting areas of marsh advancement for the future, and that in Old Lyme we only have 11% of that land protected. I was wondering if you have thoughts on the practicality of doing that, and if it is practical to move on protecting marshes along, especially the southern shore and along the Connecticut River. Much of the Connecticut River is protected, but particularly they identify particular parcels along the southern shore. If you could talk about the practicality of that, and if it is practical in any way, what the Board of Selectmen can do to move that forward.
We really have with the Horseneck Creek Landing. That's really Open Space's first property. It's not technically a salt marsh because of certain times of year, much of the flow is entirely fresh water, but it's considered to be a brackish marsh. So we basically made an effort to protect that as much as possible and limit the access, obviously, to what's appropriate for if we get approval for a future kayak dock. Much of the other marshland that is conserved is held by either the state or the Land Trust. The Land Trust actually has a number of marsh properties that they've purchased. One of them is right along the Black Hall River, right across from the Black Hall Marina. There's a sign that's put up there, and I think they own a fair bit of property along the Lieutenant River on the southern border of that. We obviously look at what properties would be most appropriate to protect and preserve. And if there's properties that would include soil marsh, I would think something we would be very interested in looking at, Jim, and we would certainly come before the Board of Selectmen and talk to you about that and see if it's something that you'd be willing to support.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do not have anything else.
All right, Greg, thank you so very much for making time today for us.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Okay. And I'm going to put your packet into the minutes. So everything that you sent to us will be in the minutes as well.
Great.
All right. Okay, so after that, we're going to move on to new business. I will give you both. We did receive one new application for road and public safety. It is in an area that we have an abundance, but we do not have to act on it tonight. We can ponder it, or I know last week you were
You're right. I
you said
remember.
that maybe we want to just add, because we don't have anyone for the 4 Mile River area.
She lives Ferry Road, am I correct?
Ferry Road, yes.
Great.
And
The only other concern I have is the minority
yeah,
parties. I don't know what the
I think
ratio would
we
be.
are,
We
we're
have one,
definitely,
we're getting close on that.
I don't have them noted on my list, so I'd have to go back and
I
check.
think there was
So we
one
can-
R.
We can
Yeah.
move this. We don't have to vote on this tonight.
Okay.
This just came in at the end of last week.
Sounds great.
So we can table this until our next meeting in September.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
And Jude, what I'll do is I'll redo this list with party affiliations so that you'll
Okay.
have, we'll all be up to date. And
Thank you.
sometimes. Okay. The next one is B is canceled because the registrars have asked for some more time. And then Lime Street sidewalk is more of an informational piece from me to both of you. I had the owners of the hair gallery come in to see me earlier this month because the sidewalk down by Nightingale's and the hair gallery is very raised.
Mhm.
It's about possibly 4 inches. I asked that the tree warden look at the tree because the raising of the sidewalk is caused by the tree roots, very much what we were seeing on Ferry Road. And Tom Degnan has said that although it is a beautiful tree, he understands the root system is causing some problems. We don't want to take the tree down now, but we do need to come up with a plan. And Ed has done something before where this is technical, so I'm just going to go, but he injects some type of a concrete into the ground under the sidewalk to help raise the other one up.
That makes
And I
sense.
guess he's done this once before. He could try it again, but it is a liability for the street. And so if you get a chance, if you could both take a walk and
Mhm.
just look at it. Ed and I are pondering what to do when. And as you know, we tried to save some of the trees on Ferry Road by doing some root shavings and other types of things. And we could also call in Bartlett to give us an idea of what they would do for that one particular tree or possibly two. But we would not have to do the whole sidewalk. We'd have to probably do 2 to 3 sections and
Okay.
redo it. But
Got it.
look at that when you get a chance, and we'll put that on the next agenda as well. And then Public Works, Ed has asked that I inform the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. As you know, over the last year or two, Eversource has just been absolutely generous to this town
Mhm.
about taking down trees that we felt were at risk. However, there is no more money through Eversource for tree removal. So Ed would like us to know that the price of taking down trees has risen considerably. And he knows that there's going to be an overage this year in the budget. So he just wanted everyone to be aware now that he'll do his best, but he thinks it's not going to be a good year.
I think when we were working on the budget, we questioned if it would be enough. And so I think we are put on notice then.
It is.
So thank you.
Okay, and then we have Mr. McCarthy is here from the fire department with some information and a request for us.
Mike McCarthy Jr., Chief of the Old Line Fire Department. So I'm here tonight just to kind of like Ed, also let you know, we appropriate funding for our fire hose every year. We are basically taking a guess when we appropriate that money as to what might fail every year when we have our NFPA testing done. Two things come into play: the age of the hose and also whether it is fit for the pressure test. This year in particular, we had no hose that was going to age out. And we anticipated a couple lengths of each size that might fail. Usually when they get within 5 years of their expiration date, that's when we start to see them fail. We had 15 sections of hose fail this year at testing. So that being said, I had only budgeted to lose, two lengths of 5-inch hose this year, which is at $880 a piece. And we had 15 fail. So our 5-inch hose budget this year will definitely end up being overspent, and we can talk about appropriations.
What was that number again?
15 lengths, and they are $880 a piece.
No discounts for multiple pieces, huh?
No discounts for multiple pieces, but discounts on freight.
Okay.
So anything over 5,000, they do it by cost. So anything over $5,000, they give us free freight on shipping it to us, which we will be. So in total, that's $13,320 in hose, which
so it's all, but you had budgeted for a portion of that.
I had budgeted for 2 lengths. That same budget item covers 3-inch hose because this is considered supply hose. So in total, my budget was $3,000.
And the total now is
$1,320. So we're
you're
$10,300 short on what failed this year.
Got it.
So that is obviously something unexpected. We in my career, we've never had that much hose fail in 1 year. We try to be proactive about it. We only let our hose hit the age of 25 years and we replace it to try to avoid things like this. And every piece of hose that we had a failure on this year was 2007 hose. So it's actually got a decent amount of time left before it would have hit its town-wide expiration date.
Do we have many hoses that are dated 2008 coming up?
I'd have to go through the entire spreadsheet to tell you exactly what the numbers are. We have hose we have some stuff that would be coming out next year that is 2000, year 2000 purchase, all the way up to stuff that's 2023 purchase, and everywhere in between for just over 17,000 feet of hose. So there's a lot in there.
Got it.
From all years. We try to buy a little bit each year so we're not hit with big numbers.
Do you have many years where it's been this many?
This is the first year that in my career, this is the first year we've ever lost this much hose. Usually it's 1 or 2 lengths under failure, and we have 4 or 5 that we know are going to go out of date.
Right.
So we anticipate it because we know it's going to expire. But from a failure rate, an unknown failure rate, this is the first time that we've had this.
It makes me wonder, are we going to have that happen a few years in a row based on who the manufacturer was or how many?
We use the same manufacturers on everything for the last roughly 30 years. Last year, that company went out of business and we had to switch manufacturers. So any of our 2023 hose is a new manufacturer, which nobody around us has had problems with. None of it failed this year. I don't expect it to fail in the future. But all of our hose over the last 30 prior to that was one
It'd
manufacturer.
be interesting to see a sheet that lists how many units we have at what age.
Yeah, I have it all.
Okay,
Every
I'm sure.
date, every single piece of hose has a serial number on it,
Yeah.
corresponding with a date, a year of manufacture, when it's been tested, how it's been tested, and when we plan on phasing it out. NFPA rules are anything older than 1987. Old Lyme, we keep it at the 25-year rate, like all of our other
Right.
equipment, just to try to stay ahead of it. If we met NFPA for 1987, I'm sure we'd see this number a whole lot more every year, and
Right.
that's why we try to be proactive about it. But this year we are going to see an over expenditure of that account.
That's up.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, just for educational purposes,
Sure.
to determine the hose's lifespan, and you said testing, what do you do to test hose?
So we have a third party company that comes in and takes every length of hose and stretches it out. Depending on the size of the hose, they put a certain amount of pressure in it per manufacturer specification. Whatever size that hose is and whatever length it is corresponds with a certain test pressure that it has to sit under for 15 minutes. They do that every year to every piece of Old Lyme's hose. And if it has a pinhole in it, if it has expansion from the coupling. Also, what we see a lot is big blisters. It'll actually blister the hose in a 6 or 8 inch circle on some of this larger stuff. But that is an NFPA federal rule. Every town has to meet it, and it's something we are held to for our ISO rating. When they come in for our ISO audits, we have to have consecutive years of hose testing, and if we don't, we lose points on it.
Next question is, what do we do with old hose?
It is essentially garbage. So what I do is we cut the couplings off of it because we don't want anyone to be able to use it because it is technically dangerous by manufacturer specifications. We cut the couplings off of it and we leave it at the firehouse for up to 2 weeks for anyone to come and take. We advertise it on our Facebook page, and any of the department members or construction companies in town, they use it for like dock edging, or they use some of them, the bigger stuff, they actually use it for excavator tracking across pavement. So it's free to anyone that would like it. Because it's failures, we can't give it to anyone to use. The stuff that ages out, technically we could give it to somebody to use. However, it's taking on a little bit of a liability, but per NFPA specs, it is still good to use. The aged out stuff for the town of Old Lyme, we will not cut the couplings off because it is still good. It hasn't failed, but you see more of the landscape and construction guys wanting that for their pump outs, for their trash pumps. And that's all low pressure use. So we've given some of that out, and it doesn't put anybody in a risk because they're not using it at 300 PSI and things like that. But it is free to the public when we do have stuff that ages out. We can't resell it.
I know I heard of a company recently that takes fire hose for recycling purposes, but they make something else out of it. And I'll
Yes.
have to see if I can
There's
find-
companies that make wallets, they make belts, they make all kinds of stuff out of it. Normally the hose testing companies have some of those retailers that they work with, and they'll tell us that day, hey, we have XYZ company that's interested in taking all your failed hose for this reason. And we will usually give it to them if it's one of those style systems. We won't give it all to them because we do have townspeople that want it also. So we kind of try to share it, but there are those concept companies that do request it every once in a while.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So I will let the Board of Finance know about this tomorrow.
Okay.
But usually in this case, and this early in the budget year, we would tell you to go ahead and spend it and order it because you need it. And then we'll go for a one-time appropriation at the end of the year, because you'll probably be over on some of your other, you'll be under on some of your other line items, and we could
Right.
either do a transfer or something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like the attack hose budget, we didn't lose any this year. None of it failed. So that money won't be spent.
Right.
So it'll counteract each other a little bit. But,
Okay.
That's
okay.
That's
Micah,
good
just
news.
a quick question.
Sure.
It seems funny that all of the 15 segments that failed were all 2007.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
hoses we have over a 23-year period. So do you have any theory on that? Why?
The only thing we thought about is it was 10 of the 15 were all on the ladder or on the real truck in concession.
Oh.
And the only thing we can think is that maybe at some point over a fire in the last year that those 10 got damaged in a roadway or something. But other than that, there's really no rhyme or reason. It just happens to be when I was going through the spreadsheets, I noticed that all my 15 pieces were 2007's date. So
Any 2007 that didn't fail?
yes,
Okay.
I couldn't tell you the exact number. I'd have to
That's
look it
right.
up, but yes, absolutely.
Well, it makes sense that maybe they were damaged.
That's the only theory I can come up with.
Mhm.
I mean, there's really nothing else that would make it fail. It doesn't have an expiration date where it just
Right.
lets go at, 10 years old or something. So, we'll have to watch for it in future years. And,
They weren't
Hopefully it's the
stored. Were they stored in the same place? I mean,
they're all on the same real
Real.
truck. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's hose on that truck from 2002 all the way up to probably that truck's probably 2022.
Okay.
So there's 2,400 feet of hose on that truck made up of all different years. So it's hard to say that it's just a 2007 problem.
okay, but we will say it wasn't a very good year for.
It was not a good year for hose manufacturing, I guess.
All right, thank you. And I will let you know if the Board of Finance says anything different, but
Okay.
from right now, if you need it, you should get it.
All right. Thank you.
And talk to Anita.
Especially
Just like
for
Anita's on, I know Anita's online, so she'll jump in with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, now we have our
CCOG.
edition of CCOG. So this afternoon I received an email and Dave says he did not receive it, but supposedly this was supposed to be in by July 31st. And it's what it is CCOG every year does this MOA in all 44 towns within this area. Sign this. We don't get any money from this grant, but we support the grant. And what the money does that they receive buys supplemental pieces of equipment that we can borrow, kind of like a
Okay.
library. So message boards, light towers, anything that does for emergency support.
Got it.
So what we would like to do is I need your permission to sign it along with Dave. Dave's filling it out tonight and for me to sign it so that they get the backing of all 44 towns. So if I could have a motion to sign the CCOG MOA for their yearly grant, that would be appreciated.
I'll make a motion to sign the CCOG yearly grant.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just want to clarify. So we usually operate under Rivercog.
Yes, but sometimes we come under CCOG because we're on the shoreline and we
That
cut
makes
that.
sense.
We cut that one too. And this is more, if you think about emergency management, we might get more help from East Lyme or Waterford
Shoreline.
or shoreline areas in
Mhm.
certain situations than we would up perhaps Haddam or Killingworth in a situation.
Do we have guidelines as to when we fall under Rivercog planning versus CCOG?
The majority of the time, but because this is part of emergency management and every state entirety splits the state differently.
Mhm.
So the COGS get divided some ways and then emergency management services gets to divided another way. So we're one region for emergency management,
Mhm.
or another for Rivercog. There's no rhyme or reason.
Okay.
And then for DOT, they split the state in half, north and south. So we're only in two areas for there. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying.
you need a Excel sheet to make sure that you're aware. Okay, so hearing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of me signing the MOA, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you both very much. Okay, we will move on to Selectmen's general discussion, and I'm going to start with, again, another brief information that we have come up with is, and this is about our WPCA. But when the WPCA was originally put into place in 2012, as you can see, their responsibilities and their jurisdiction called for them to be sewer adverse and does not mention sewers about putting them in. So we need to redo this ordinance so that our WPCA is in compliance. I've already sent this to legal to look at. Vicky Erbowitz and I have forwarded it over to Jack to say we need to make sure this is updated. It's just one of those things that I think fell under the radar since 2012. And as things changed, we did not pick it up. No one happened to notice that this is the way it's supposed to be done. So if we look at our responsibilities, that is the area where we would have to do some rewording.
So this, you're giving this to us for information.
I am.
Okay.
So it was adopted in 1995 and then I guess reassigned in 2012, but I don't know why it wasn't updated to put the word that they were looking into the sewer project.
Okay.
So that is something that we'll have to look into and see what other towns, how their wording is. But I know that Mike, Harry, and Jack will work on this for us as well. All right. Is there anything else that either of you have that you want to discuss?
Just quickly, I'd like to bring up minutes again, and when we correct or amend minutes. And a few people in town have mentioned this, that, and I don't know exactly how this is going to play out with FOIA, so I don't know what's practical, what's not. But in the past, we've seen, if we go back in the minutes, we'll see that they're amended minutes. You know, that, you know, we'll have our meeting, we'll look at the minutes, we'll correct them, and then those minutes would be amended. It appears that our present policy is when the minutes come out, they're just done. And then if we amend them, that gets noted in subsequent minutes, the day that we amend them. And I was wondering if there's any way that we could see a draft of the minutes before they get published on the website so that we can sort of head some of this off at the pass.
Okay.
And is that, would we be compliant?
If we could see a draft before they're actually posted on the website.
Yeah, because it seems like there's a lot of time that just will cause confusion, I think, if, you know, we're correcting minutes maybe a month or 2 months down the road instead of at the time.
I will say it's a practice that's used by almost every board and commission. And from my understanding from discussing with Vicky in the town clerk's office, that minutes are not supposed to be reposted. So once they're posted, those go up, and the practice is that at your next meeting, when you review them, the corrections are made. And I think that if you go back and historically and read in through other Board of Selectmen minutes from years past, you'll see the exact same thing. It doesn't get corrected in the book as what actually happened, but you have to go to the next meeting to see if there were any changes made. And I understand. I tried to, Suzanne sends them to me. I sit and review them and go through one more time. I sometimes, if the recording's up, I will play the recording to make sure what I can, but sometimes I miss them too. But I think more than anything, what we should do is, I'm happy to share the minutes ahead of time. When Suzanne sends them to me, I can do a first pass and send them to both of you.
That'd be great.
Then, but I do think we should qualify with Vicky exactly what other towns do, because I understand your
this has come up for years.
And why, and perhaps, you know, it could be some type of a Secretary of State kind of rules on what are things that happen. I don't know who makes the rules up there, but she's following them.
Okay. And the other, just an observation with our jet ski issue, we had a lot of jet skis come in and beach themselves down at Soundview. So far, not so good.
No,
really.
Jet skis.
I'm sorry to hear
just, you know, making note of that. So
Plan isn't
we'll
working.
see how that goes. I think we're going to need to get some information out there to the jet skiers somehow.
well, so I did have a conversation with Matt Lynch about next year. Now, first of all, excuse me, we are supposed to reapply for our permits every year.
Mhm.
That process has not always been followed correctly in the past. We would like to see it move forward correctly. So first things first is when Matt said, and I talked to Don Bugby today, that the swim lines usually come out shortly after Labor Day. What Matt would like to do is take everything back into inventory at Public Works again, where we stored them last year, and organize what we need. And one of those things, of course, that he had talked about was the fact that we should have the jet ski warning buoys that are up, floating, the mooring
Yes.
things, and talk about, where you have to cut your wake, and you can have jet ski parking or whatever, but better signage. So that is something that we might consider. It could be financially expensive, but we can get a list from Matt of what he will recommend that we do, plot it out. I know that there are some people in Soundview who would like to see the swim area extended because some of the other beaches are 300 feet out
Right.
and we're only 2. So if that's the case, that will probably require a survey, hydrographic survey, which can be done. They did it at White Sands this year, thanks to Harbor Management. They got that done for us. So we can do that. And then really and truly, starting in October, start to plan out what we want. I mean, as far as the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'm not sure how much we can get the
Yeah, I mean,
information
the
out.
season's almost over.
Right. This weekend must have been a little quieter, I would think, due to the weather.
Right.
But it is interesting that you can go. I mean, I was at one of the other beaches this weekend on Friday night. I only saw one jet ski the whole time I was there.
Mhm.
They were headed towards,
But they didn't have a bar at their beach or nearby
we
either.
don't. But we do need to have further discussions.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up was the party bus that was down there.
Yes.
I know we used to have a lot of trouble with those. They would just idle. We'd have 5, 7 of them at a time parked on the street, idling the whole time that they're there, hours and hours and hours. The neighborhood would just stink of diesel. And so we had one down there, which I know is illegal because they're supposed to come before us for an exemption.
They are.
Right.
And so they obviously didn't. So I think we have to make sure that we enforce that
Have we-
regulation.
Has it always been that they could park in the parking lot?
We give special permission. We've had them park up the old church parking lot on Swan and Shore up
Got it.
there. Sometimes they get permission, especially if it's like, for disabled people, they'll park down at, or, and sometimes there's a bus that would serve the elderly. There'd be a meeting or whatever. And so they would park in a more convenient place. But anyway, all that's supposed to come before us for exemptions, and the exemptions are few and far between. So these party buses are definitely not, if a school bus can't get down
They
there,
just violate it. Right.
if we don't allow school buses down those streets, we should not be allowing the party buses.
That's true. The other thing too about Soundview parking lot is I've had a lot of people mention to me that, Wednesday nights they play bingo, and bingo starts, I think it's 7. It's usually wraps up between 8:30 and 8:45. But people want to stop and talk and stop for an ice cream on their way back up the street.
And they can't.
And the gate's locked.
Yep.
Some people have said they got there at 7:45. They were late for bingo, but they were still going, and the gate was closed then. So we do not need to start to make some rules, and maybe we have some special exceptions that on Wednesday nights it stays open until the Shoreline Community Center is dark and the carousel shop is shut down. Because it's a fundraiser for the Shoreline Community Center. I think that we have to be.
Well, it's good for the
supportive.
local
Yeah, it's
business
very-
there as well.
Yeah.
Very, very popular.
No, and I've heard
Most of it,
complaints about that for years down there.
Yeah.
Okay, so for
Yeah.
next season, we take a closer look.
Sometimes you have big crowds still at 9:00, especially in
Yes.
the height of summer.
Oh,
The sun has
absolutely.
just gone
Even if
down.
it's not bingo
Quarter
night,
to
there's a
9, the
lot of
sun
people.
goes down.
It's the
so,
nicest time of the day down there.
Yes, people are having ice cream, still a line.
Families are
I
there.
think it's
Yeah,
when we
screen
see
shot.
more of our residents
Right.
go to that
Yeah.
area. And I think that that's we need to be as supportive as possible.
Did Jim have anything else? I have
No,
a
I'm
couple
all
of things.
done. Thank you.
One of the things on my list, and thank you, was updates from the HR department.
And Jill and I are meeting this week to review the handbook. We just
Okay.
need a block of like 2 hours to just
Good luck.
go through.
No, I'm happy to see that things are moving forward. Two things. Well, at our meeting last week, there was a conversation about.
Are we talking about the special
I
meeting?
think it was a special meeting. I may be wrong. I don't know the verbiage, but we had a conversation about state grants and something came up. You referred to that all state grants do not always come through. And you mentioned something about Lyme and Old Lyme. Are there any grants pending that are being pulled that we may
We
have
had one grant for the senior center pulled.
We did.
It was the Connecticut Department of Aging. They were given a large amount of money. Don't quote me on this.
No, that's why I'm asking.
I think it was about $1 million that they were given. They decided to divvy it up, that each of the towns, the 169 towns with senior centers, would get a portion representative of their senior population. So we were supposed to get about 27,000.
That's what I thought.
Lyme was supposed to get another fair share, and we were going to use that for the sound system at the senior center.
What I thought.
So the applications were due in by, I think it was July 31st. Mine was in. David was about to send his in. Just before David hit send, we got an email from the Connecticut Department of Aging that the state had pulled $650,000
of the million. Great.
Back because they realized it hadn't been allocated yet, even though the applications weren't supposed to be in till the 31st of July, but they pulled that 650 back and to use it for something else. So
it's never there.
Then the Connecticut Department of Aging decided that instead of looking at all the grants that had already been put in, they went back and said, well, we're going to close out anything that came in after like June 15th. So ours, and along with some others, came in after the date they chose. So they picked a random date.
Okay.
And that was the situation. But I do see, the state will say, oh, we're going to give you this.
Yep.
But will they guarantee it? Which makes me nervous.
Of course.
Sometimes.
Two other little things. Someone asked me about Halls Road overlay now being labeled public improvement. I don't know where that came from. Somebody on the street walked up and asked me if it had been renamed.
I never heard it. I have not heard things.
And then I know you can't be discussed.
Although I will tell you that Ed fixed one of the parts of the sidewalk over the bridge last week.
I saw that.
So that was a public improvement.
Without a grant. And I know the investigation has nothing to do with us. Do we know with the state police if the EMT investigation is moving forward or if it's just sitting there?
It's moving forward, but I don't have any updates.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we are at 6:38. Great timing, people. We are going to be moving into executive session. So I need a motion to move into executive session.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
I'll second.
Jim, second. We're going into executive session and it is 6:39.